I know I'm breaking the rules, but who's gonna stop me? No one. It's embarrassing to admit, but here we are. Nothing but transparency on this channel. Hey friends, it's Sarah, and today I'm doing BookTube's favorite tag, the mid-year book freakout tag. So it is the second week of June, which is approximately halfway through the year, and I want to do this tag. I do it every year. I think every booktuber does it every year. It's iconic, and it's just a good way to kind of wrap up the last 6 months of reading. So there are 13 questions to answer, and then I've also pulled 3 bonus questions from Booksandlala's video last year. So I'm gonna answer those as well. Without further ado, let's talk about what I've been reading since January. So far I've read 86 out of the 180 books that I want to read this year. I'm 10 books ahead of schedule, which is great. I have read 6 of the 12 books that I'm reading for my 12 friends recommend me 12 books for 12 months challenge. So I'm also right on track there, which is excellent. So we're off to a great start. It's been really good. I've had some months that I've read a ton, and then other months, I think March, I was in a bit of a reading slump, and so it wasn't as great, or I wasn't as invested in the books. So it's kind of been like a roller coaster, but I'm on track for my numbers, which is great. So the first question is the best book that I have read in 2023 so far, and I have a few because I can't narrow it down. I feel like all these books did something really different for me, and I have a hard time comparing them. So first off is actually the first book that I read this year is still one of the best books that I've read this year, which is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. It's an adult fiction book about a pair of friends who start designing video games and get into business together, and kind of their friendship and the different trials with working with your friend and just existing. It starts in university and kind of follows them as they create their own company and everything. It's such an excellent look at friendship and platonic love and maintaining friendships, and it's beautiful. John Green recommended it, and he was so right. It was so good. And a second best book of the year, I know I'm breaking the rules, but who's gonna stop me? No one, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. Every time I read an Emily Henry book, I'm like, her other ones were great, but this one might not be as good, and that's okay. And then every time I'm like, that one was so good. Is it my new favorite? I don't know, because they're all so incredible. This one was beautiful and romantic and devastating, and it was just it hit all of the perfect Emily Henry emotions for me, where it's so swoon-worthy and so romantic, but then also really hits you hard with the emotions. I just really appreciate that about her writing. But basically this one follows a couple who are going on their yearly trip with their other friends, but they have actually broken up and not told anyone. So they're trying to maintain this facade of still being together when they have been horribly broken up for several months. But they're trying to keep it together for the friends so they can have one last happy summer in their happy place. It's great. Emily Henry's some sort of genius. I don't know how she does it. The final book that I have for best book of the year is Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is a graphic novel. It's nonfiction, sort of. It's basically the story of Art Spiegelman's father during the Holocaust, but it's all drawn as if Jewish people are mice and the Germans are cats. And it's just absolutely devastating, really hard to read, but so important, so engaging, and really beautiful. It not only talks about Art Spiegelman's father's experience in the Holocaust, but also Art Spiegelman's relationship with his father now and the trauma that his father has carried with him from that really horrific experience, and how that has affected their lives, and the things that he does because he learned it in Auschwitz. And it's so good. So the first volume was from 1973 and the second volume was from 1986. This is a collection of both of them. So it is, how old is that now? 40 years old almost, but it's so excellent. I think should be absolutely required reading. I think some schools have this as required reading. I did not, but I wish I had because it's so good. Okay, so then the next question is, what is the best sequel that I've read in 2023? So the best sequel that I read this year is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. The Scythe series has been out for a little bit. The second one came out So this is from 2018. I believe the first one came out in 2016, but I had not read them because I didn't really know what they're about. They didn't really appeal to me. And then two of my coworkers read them and were talking about them, and I got FOMO. So I decided to also read them, and oh my god, this series is incredible. The world building in it is so fascinating. The characters are really interesting as well, but it's definitely like the world building in this that really gets you. The ideas, the like bigger themes throughout it really make you think. Like after you put down the book, once you finished it, you just kind of sit there and you're like, how do I feel about life and death? And like, it's so fascinating. And I think the second one is even better than the first one because it started to like delve deeper into some of the topics that the first one touched on. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder why this happens. And then this book was like, let me talk to you about that. So I think this whole series is just so beautifully done. I haven't found a series in quite a while that I've truly loved every book, and I feel like, I don't know how to say this, but it really feels like a cohesive story. It doesn't feel like too long or too short, or like they were like trying to stretch it at all. It just feels so perfectly done. And I'm in the middle of reading the third one right now, and I'm shocked every time. The plot twists in these stories, I'm like, I know there's gonna be plot twists, and I still can't figure them out. It's nuts. Neil Shusterman is such a good writer, and I am gonna start reading all of his other backlist because if it's this good, then he might become a new favorite author. Oh, but basically, the Scythe series is a YA kind of like utopia dystopia series where humankind has hit immortality and everyone's like happy and there's nothing wrong anymore, and so they have these people called scythes who go and kill people to kind of like control the population a bit, keep things a little more interesting, because without natural death, people just like don't have purpose. They don't have that sense of urgency to like do anything with their lives. They're just like kind of little zombies. And so they have these scythes to make it a bit more interesting, keep people on their toes, if you will. It's set in that world and it follows these scythes, and it's just incredibly fascinating. So then the next question is, what are some new releases that you haven't read yet but that you want to? And for that one, I have Painted Devils by Margaret Owen. I got the Illumicrate edition, and it is shipping out soon-ish, so I think I should have it by the end of June and I can read it then. But I also have Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko, who is one of my favorite musicians. She was iconic in Lemonade Mouth, and she is continuing to be iconic as the lesbian Jesus. But she wrote this novel, this YA novel, based on her hit song Girls Like Girls and the music video. And I didn't really look into the synopsis too much. I just saw it was Hayley Kiyoko. It was based on that. And it, like, look at how cute this is. This is all glittery. It's got these really sweet end papers. It's got a really cute bike. It's just like a great package, and I'm really hoping that she writes books as well as she writes her songs. The next question is the most anticipated release of the second half of the year, and that has got to be Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is her most recent adult romance book, and it follows an actor and an author who's going to ghostwrite his kind of autobiography, and they actually hook up before they realize who they are, and it's really bad. And so as they're working on this manuscript together, they also decide that she will give him lessons on how to be better in bed. So apparently it's her most steamy one yet, which I am a little nervous about because I'm not great with steamy books, but I love her romances and I love her teen books. I think she's like one of my auto-buy authors, I would say, at this point. I buy everything that she comes out with, so I'm super excited for that. Next is a less fun category, and that is the biggest disappointment of the year. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't read any like major flops this year. I think my biggest disappointment was So This Is Love by Tracy Andreen. This is a sequel to So This Is Christmas, which I thought was such a delightful, sweet holiday romance. And then this one was kind of like after that, and there was more strife in the relationship, and it just didn't have those like really feel-good romantic feelings that I wanted. It was maybe closer to a contemporary than a romance, and it wasn't what I wanted, and it wasn't what I was expecting, and I just felt kind of let down because they were broken up for a large part of the book, and I was like, well, that's not what I want. I want them to be cute and happy together. So that one was kind of disappointing for me, unfortunately. The biggest surprise of the year, I think, was The Banned Bookshop of Maggie Banks by Shauna Robinson. I read Must Love Books by this author and I really enjoyed that, and so I decided to read her latest one and was just blown away. I thought it was so beautiful. The romance was great, the like self-discovery of the characters was amazing, and it's got like books, which is excellent, but basically this follows a young woman who's kind of like lost in her life, and she ends up moving to this small town and taking over a bookshop. And the town is like centered around this one dude, so she has to only sell books that were around when he was alive, which is like the 1800s or something, and then, or ones that he's written. Meanwhile, like the bookshop's not doing so well because no one wants to read just the classics and these books that this dude has written, especially not the locals. So she starts to kind of sell books like under the table and has like a little black market business running. And it was so sweet. It has those great like wholesome small town vibes, the really fun cast of characters that you tend to get a lot in those like small town books, and just like a main character who was just like really relatable and trying her best, and I was really rooting for her the whole time. So that one I expected to just kind of like, and I ended up really loving it, and I actually keep meaning to buy it, but I haven't yet. So it's on my list of things to buy, along with like 20 other books. We're not talking about that. The next is a favorite new author. Could be like a debut author or someone who's new to you. And for that, I have Uzma Jalaluddin. I got this arc, Much About Nada, from HarperCollins. I read Hana Khan Carries On, which was her, I think, second book, the one that came out before this, and I really enjoyed that. And then I read this arc and I loved this one, and I think she's just such an excellent voice in contemporary Canadian literature, and it's not quite romance, but it's kind of like verging on romance. Similar to like Emily Henry, there's like a lot of romance, but there's other real world things happening, and it's not just like relationship issues. So I just have really enjoyed the two books of hers that I've read, and I plan on reading her first one, Aisha at Last, and any others that she comes out with. This one comes out June 13th, so next week. Keep an eye out for this one. I really loved it. This cover is just like grayscale, but it does have like a very beautiful, vibrant cover in the actual published version. But yeah, get your hands on this as soon as you can because it's such a delightful romance, contemporary story featuring Muslim characters. The next question is the newest fictional crush. I got nothing. The only time I've had a fictional crush was Jane Sue from One Last Stop, and she still reigns supreme in my heart, so sorry everyone else, but you won't be Jane Sue. New favorite character. I'm not like super great at remembering characters from books, but I think if I had to choose, it would either be Harriet from Happy Place, because I just really related to her. She's like a hardcore people pleaser. She just wants everyone to get along. She like loves her friends so much. And I really related to her. So on basis of like, who did I connect with the most? I feel like Harriet from Happy Place. But I did also really love Emily Wilde from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. She's just like such a little curmudgeon, a scholar. She's like, leave me alone. I don't want to be disturbed by anyone. I'm here to do my studies. It's very serious academic business. I will not connect with people. And then of course she like falls in love with the villagers who she's like hosted by. And it's just so heartwarming. I think it's also a great kind of twist on the like grumpy sunshine dynamic in here, because normally it's the guy who's grumpy and the girl who's sunshine, and in this it's the opposite, where she's a little bit grumpy and he's a very delightful, charming man. So I just really liked Emily Wilde. I think she's a very different character than you tend to see, and I love her and wish her the best and can't wait for the second book to come out. And then the next question is a book that made you happy, which is like, there's a lot of them, but I'm gonna go with Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall because that one was just a riot. I had so much fun reading it. I don't think I should have enjoyed it as much as I did, but it's just like a really fun, ridiculous romp through Regency England with, again, like a grumpy sunshine character. If any of y'all were on Tumblr in like 2012 when Super Hulock was big, the two main characters kind of give like John and Sherlock vibes, like it's like John Locke, and I was really in the Sherlock fandom, so that really appealed to like me 10 years ago. That still lives in my heart. It's embarrassing to admit, but here we are. Nothing but transparency on this channel. So that was just, yeah, such a delightful, silly adventure. It was very romantic and sweet, but it's just ridiculous. I think if it hadn't been like Regency era, I would not have put up with how ridiculous it was. I don't know why. For some reason, Regency romances just really let me suspend my disbelief a lot more than any other like contemporary ones. So I just had a grand old time with it. A book that made you cry. I think Happy Place almost made me cry. I don't know if I had any books that like really like had actual physical tears, but Big Tree by Brian Selznick really got me choked up. Brian Selznick is just incredible at what he does. He writes these like graphic novel and then like actual novel like intertwined books where he's got these beautiful graphite drawings intermixed with written pages, and he just mixes those mediums so well. This one was about two little seedlings. It takes place in like prehistoric times, and they leave their like mother tree and they're going out in the world to try and find somewhere to land, and it's just so beautiful and so touching. And I was like, these seeds don't even have faces and I'm still crying over them. It's great. Everything he writes is so moving to me, and I think he really knows how to tap into your emotions with these beautiful drawings and these incredible stories. The other book that almost made me cry was Shape of Thunder by Jasmine Warga. I talked about that in my Asian readathon video, and I'll post a link to that, but oh my god. I mean, the whole premise of it is devastating. So it is a middle grade book, and it follows two ex-best friends who, one of them, her sisters died in a school shooting, and the other one was her brother who committed the school shooting. And so their friendship has broken up, and they are grieving and mourning, and the one is like, hey, I think we can figure out time travel and we can like stop this from ever happening. So it's them trying to figure out time travel so they can get their siblings back and fix this, and it's just devastating. It's so good. It's so well done, and it explores like grief at that age so well. But the worst, and by worst I mean best, but also saddest part, is these letters that the girl whose brother did the school shooting writes to him. And you can just really see like her inner turmoil and the like, you know, you're my brother and I loved you, but like, how could you do this? And her guilt, feeling like she should have stopped him. And I just, it wrecked me. I think it's such an important book, especially for any Americans. Y'all have a lot of school shootings, and I think it really explores the after effects of that on families super well. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year? And the most beautiful book I've bought and received so far is Warrior Girl on Earth by Angeline Boulley. It's just, I mean, her covers are stunning. I don't know who she sold her soul to get such gorgeous covers, but like, look at that. It's beautiful. It's got these lovely like maple leaf end papers and this little sweet ferret maybe on the cover. It's gorgeous. I'm so excited to read this one. It's all about like reclaiming stuff from museums and about like missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and it just sounds really, really good, and it's gorgeous. Look at it. The other book that I have purchased but not yet received is, as I previously said, the Illumicrate version of Painted Devils, and I think once I get that will be my most beautiful book, because it's going to have like the edges, and I think / hope that Margaret Owen also illustrated the hardcover of it, just like she did for Little Thieves, so I'm really excited to get that one. I think it's going to be chef's kiss. I think the other most beautiful book that I've received this year is How to Plant a Lemon Tree by my friend Brad Kettner. He made this beautiful little book of poetry. It has these really sweet illustrations that go along with the poems, and he signed it for me, which is really great. But I am so proud of him, honestly. This is such a delightful book. It chronicles his journey through a relationship and then through a breakup and out the other side. And I know it took him a lot of work, but it was so worth it. The poetry is beautiful. I think also because it's so personal and because I know him, it's really emotional for me to read, where I'm like, oh, this is like my friend, and I can see him going through these hard things, and like, oh, that's sad. But I think he also manages to make that experience very like universal. And while you're like, I can tell this is like personally about a thing you're going through, it also resonates with you. I haven't gone through like a really tough breakup like this, but I could still really relate to it. And he's just done such a great job. And I just think it really explores Brad's ideas on like love and friendship and how to like live a best life. And I really think he is one of the kindest and most generous and most creative people I know. And it is all reflected in this tiny book. And if he ever makes it available for other people to buy, I would highly recommend it because it's like a little warm hug and I love it. So thank you, Brad, for letting me have a copy. Also, Brad makes like videos and had a wonderful podcast, and he's just always doing something incredibly creative. So I will link his YouTube down below and you can go check out all his videos because I think they also really exemplify the kind of like care and love that he extends towards everyone in his life. He's just such an amazing human. The last official question for this tag is, what books do you have to read by the end of the year? I do have The Toll that I have to finish by Neil Shusterman. It is the finale of the Arc of the Scythe series, and I'm almost done. I just have like this much left to read, so that's pretty good. I will definitely finish that before the year's over. I also have some more books to read for the 12 Books Friends Months challenge. I won't list them all because there's 6 of them. You can check out my TBR video for that challenge, but I do have a few like on hand that I need to read. So I've got Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen, The Wealthy Barber Returns by David Chilton, and The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane by Lisa C. And then 3 others. So I'm on my way, but those do need to be finished before January 1st, 2024, which does not seem like a real date. So then these are the 3 bonus questions from Books and Lala's 2022 video. The first one is, what was the best reread for you so far? And for that, I've got to say it was the Know My Name audiobook by Chanel Miller, and it was read by Chanel Miller, and it was, again, devastating. She has such a beautiful way with words, and she writes so lyrically, and it was just really moving to hear her tell her own story, like in her words, in her voice. I think I cried at that one. Maybe that should have been the answer to my previous question, but hearing her recount her own story was just incredibly sad and powerful and moving, and I would highly recommend the audiobook. But if not, even the physical book is just 5 stars. It's such a good book. What is the worst book you read this year? That has to be Unlock Your Storybook Heart by Amanda Lovelace. I've never read Amanda Lovelace's poetry before, but I've seen it in the bookstore all the time, and I'm like, it looks super cute. I like the idea of like using fairy tale tropes to kind of like talk about your feelings, but it just felt like Instagram self-help screenshots put in a book. I kind of like the story about like the knight and the princess. That going through was kind of cool, but a lot of it was just like, I feel like I have read this on someone's like Instagram graphic on like some sort of self-help Instagram that pops up on my feed. So that was, I gave it 1 star because I was like, why are we doing this? Also, the sections were divided out by like these full color illustrations, which were very nice, but it was the same illustration every time. And I was like, you couldn't have put something else in there, a different illustration, or even like changed it a bit to show like a progression through the story. But it was the exact same picture between every section, and it was in there like 6 or 7 times. I'm like, if you're gonna spend the money to print in color ink in this book, why are you not putting other pictures in? Why are you not even just like tweaking it a little bit? I didn't understand why it was like that. And then the last question is, what is a new genre that you've tried out? And I didn't think I had tried any, but then I did remember that I read House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, and that one is, I think, technically classified as a horror book. So I did try out the horror genre, and it was kind of spooky. It was also like, I don't know, some experimental kind of, like it's got all the like the crazy stuff going on the inside, like the fonts are different and the layout changes and the formatting's bizarre. So whatever genre that would be, kind of similar, I guess, to like S or like The Ship of Theseus by J.J. Abrams. But yeah, that was very interesting. I don't think I will be continuing to explore that genre because I'm very scared of everything all the time, and horror books are too much for me. But that one was I think just kind of hitting my limit. And it was a recommendation from a friend, so thank you, Brad. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. I've had a pretty good 6 months of reading. I hope the next 6 months are just as good, if not better. Let me know how your 2023 reading year is going. Do you set like goals? What is your number, if you have one, of books to read for the year? How are you? Are you on track? Have you had a good reading year? Have you had a lot of flops? I don't know, let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Now go read a book. And it's just such an excellent, oh my god. Is old? It's not that old. It's kind of old. Is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. I didn't know where that's gone. I was just reading it. Oh, here it is. And I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Nope, that's the wrong order.